Hello everyone, this is Mradul Swarup, a developer advocate here at Vultr. In this tech talk, we are going to be talking about how to deploy Qdrant vector database on Vultr Kubernetes engine. With Vultr's latest partnership with Qdrant, our users can now leverage Qdrant's ability to build RAG pipelines on Vultr's infrastructure. Quadrant Vector Database is an open source database with an easy to use API. It allows users to store, search, and retrieve embeddings to perform efficient similarity search operations. Qdrant Hybrid Cloud allows users to quickly spin up and scale Qdrant clusters in the cloud without the overhead of infrastructure provisioning. It also provides a user friendly interface, automated backups, and integrations with popular cloud platforms. Qdrant Hybrid Cloud enables users to deploy Qdrant clusters on Vultr Kubernetes engine. Leveraging Vultr's block storage as the storage backend, VKE allows Qdrant to scale easily. Additionally, VKE simplifies exposing Qdrant services by seamlessly integrating with Vultr load balancers and an ingress controller, which we are going to be demonstrating later in this tech talk. This setup ensures high availability and accessibility for Qdrant clusters on Vultr's robust infrastructure. Now that we have understood what is Qdrant Vector Database, Qdrant Hybrid Cloud, let's see how you can deploy Qdrant Vector Database on Vultr Kubernetes engine. For the first steps of our demonstration, we are going to be creating a hybrid cloud environment on our Qdrant dashboard. So here let's type in a name and then we'll give a namespace for our Qdrant components. That will be Qdrant itself. We will be leaving the storage class and the volume snapshot class to default, and here click on create. After the creation of the environment, we will be provided with single usage installation commands. These commands, we have to run them sequentially in our server CLI. After we have executed all the single use commands, we'll move back to our Qdrant dashboard and wait for the cluster to be ready. As we can see, our environment is getting ready as the operator state is showing ready, the agent state is showing ready, and our Prometheus state will be updated in a few seconds. Once the environment is ready, it's time for us to create a Qdrant cluster. So let's click on create, select the standard plan, select hybrid cloud as a provider, choose our hybrid cloud Vultr, type in a cluster name. So here we will be using cluster 0. We will select 3 nodes as it is ideal to match the nodes of the Kubernetes cluster, and I have 3 nodes already present in my Kubernetes cluster. We will increase the disk space to 98 and click on create. You can observe the cluster creation process from the Qdrant dashboard. Once the cluster status changes to healthy, that means our cluster is ready to use. You can also verify the same by checking the status of the pods in your Qdrant namespace. Here, as you can see, there are 3 pods with status running. That means our cluster is up and running. Now for the next steps of the demonstration, we are going to be applying an ingress resource and a cluster issuer resource to our cluster. So let's first apply a cluster issuer resource. Now let's apply the ingress resource. As you can see, both the resources are now created. That means you can now visit your domain URL with HTTPS. Upon accessing the domain URL, you will be able to see the cluster's information. This domain is already configured with my virtual load balancer's external IP, which I provisioned by installing Nginx Ingress Controller. Now, the next step is to apply custom API keys to prevent unauthorized actions in our database. To apply custom API keys, I have created 2 in Kubernetes secret resources that contains my API keys. So let's apply them. Once these resources have been applied, now it's time to configure our Qdrant cluster in our Qdrant dashboard with these API key resources. In our Qdrant dashboard, let's open up the cluster details, click on configuration, and let's add the secret name for our API key. That's Qdrant API keys and the secret key and the read-only API key and the secret key. Remember that when adding new configurations to the cluster, it will result in a rolling restart, so you will have to wait for the cluster to be healthy again. In the next steps, we are going to be sending two curl requests to our domain URL to test if the API key application has been successful. Here I am sending a curl request with no API key, so let's see what is the output. As you can see, the output says that we need an API key or an authorization bearer token to get the collections in our database. Now let's send a curl request with the API key in the header. As you can see, the result is there are no collections right now in our database. So this means the application of our custom API keys is successful. In the next steps, we'll learn how to scale up our Qdrant cluster. You can scale up your Qdrant cluster directly from your Qdrant dashboard. So here let's click on scale up. Here we get two options to scale up vertically or horizontally. After selecting the preferred options, you can click scale up. Scaling up Qdrant clusters with Vultr block storage support is both easy and efficient. And that's it for the demonstration. Now you know how to deploy Qdrant vector database on Vultr Kubernetes engine. I hope you liked the demonstration. We also have technical documentation linked in the description box with all the steps we just demonstrated. Thank you for watching today's Tech Talk. I hope to see you in the next one.